The Dutch King and Queen attend an event with World War II veterans to mark the 80th anniversary of the country's liberation from German occupation. Estonian authorities record nearly 600 violations since full customs checks were introduced at the Russian border. The Dutch King and Queen have attended an event with World War II veterans to mark the 80th anniversary of the country's liberation from German occupation. American veteran Kenneth Thayer returned to the tiny Dutch village he and his compatriots liberated from the Nazis. King Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima were driven in a vintage military truck into the village of Mesh, a tiny settlement of about 350 people. American troops from the 30th Infantry Division, known as Old Hickory, were among the Allied forces that liberated parts of Belgium and the southern Netherlands from German occupation in September 1944.
First of all, it wasn't just me. And there, look at the hundreds and hundreds of guys who didn't make it. They're not here.
Thayer was one of the guests of honour at the Mesh commemoration, which begins nearly a year of events marking the anniversary of the country's liberation. Residents of Mesh were among the first Dutch citizens to taste post-war freedom at about 10 a.m. on September the 12th, 1944. That's when Thayer and other American infantry troops crossed the border from Belgium. A day later, they reached Maastricht, the provincial capital of Limburg and the first Dutch city to be liberated. It would take several more months for the whole country to finally be freed.
Russia has expelled 6 British diplomats after accusing them of espionage on Friday. The decision was made to remove their accreditation after Russia's Federal Security Service said it received documents indicating intelligence gathering and subversive activities. The move came as UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer arrived in Washington for talks with President Joe Biden that include Ukraine's request to use Western-supplied weapons against targets inside Russia. Starmer said on his way to the US that Britain does not seek any conflict with Russia.
Estonian authorities have recorded nearly 600 violations since full customs checks were introduced at the Narva border crossing with Russia in August. Narva is a busy border point handling around 1,500 crossings from Estonia to Russia every day. Despite the high number of rule breakers, the Tax and Customs Board says the daily rate of violations has dropped slightly from around 22 to 18.
Me näeme igapäevaselt, et üle piiri ikkagi viiakse kaupu, millest siis teisel pool puudust on. Ja praegu on hetkel üks murekoht Narva kontekstist just sularaha, mille rikkumise katseid on meil kõige rohkem.
According to the customs authorities, travellers leaving Estonia generally transport goods that are in short supply in Russia, such as spare parts for cars and machinery. Estonia introduced full customs controls at the Narva crossing on August the 8th and follows a decision in May to limit the hours pedestrians can cross. The Estonian Police and Border Guard advise against all travel to Russia. Tensions between Russia and NATO member Estonia have been high since the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Tallinn says that by the end of 2023, Russia had deliberately directed groups of foreigners lacking the legal right to enter the European Union to the Estonian border. That prompted authorities to warn that if it continued, the border may be closed at short notice to protect national security.
Machinists at Boeing went on strike, marking another setback for the aircraft maker whose reputation and finances have been battered, now facing a shutdown in production. The workers are unhappy about stagnant wages and concessions made since 2008 on pensions and healthcare to prevent the company from moving jobs elsewhere. They overwhelmingly rejected a contract that would have raised pay by 25% over 4 years, with 96% voting in favour of a strike.
The city of Brussels won't take the migrants that Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban threatens to send there by bus. Mayor Philip Kloos made it clear during an interview with Euronews that his city won't be a hostage of Hungarian government.
Ces bus ne rentreront pas, d'ailleurs à mon avis, ils ne quitteront pas Budapest. C'est vraiment de la provocation qui est faite, mais il faut être très clair, ils devront d'abord passer par d'autres frontières européennes. Nos collègues allemands et nous-mêmes, j'ai eu le Premier ministre belge en ligne, nous bloquerons ces bus si jamais ils partent, mais on sent de la provocation, c'est pas comme ça qu'on fait de la politique.
Orban's plan is an answer to a €200 million fine imposed in June by the European Court of Justice to his country for not respecting EU asylum law. Migrants will be offered a free one-way trip to Brussels based on their voluntary decision, said the Hungarian government. The European Commission said that Orban's strategy is simply unacceptable and is in contact with countries on the transit route to ensure that the buses are blocked if they would really start the journey. Also, Brussels mayor strongly criticizes Orban's move, even questioning Hungary's right to preside at the Council of the EU.
C'est pas comme ça qu'on construit l'Union. Ce qui m'inquiète, c'est qu'ils président l'Union. Et je pense qu'ils n'en ont pas les capacités. Il est peut-être temps de réfléchir à savoir si la Hongrie a en effet les capacités pour présider l'Union européenne. Je ne le pense pas.
According to EU law, migrants entering the Hungarian borders have the right to claim for asylum in Hungary as a first arrival country.
Almost a year since, dozens of Serbian gunmen stormed a monastery in Kosovo, leading to a deadly shootout that killed at least 7. The alleged perpetrators have been brought to justice. Kosovo's Special Prosecutor's Office announced on Wednesday it filed indictments against 45 people for their alleged involvement.
Gjatë jetimi kemi hasur në disa sfida të rëndësishme duke përfshirë bashkëpunimin ndërkufitar, vështirësitë në zhurmimin e fondeve të shpëlarjes së parave dhe përdorimin e teknologjive të avancuara për përfshirjen e aktiviteteve kriminale nga ana e akuzuarve. Megjithatë, përkushtimi ynë për ta ndryshuar këtë rast deri në fund ka qenë
Senior Kosovar officials reiterated their claims that Belgrade was behind the attack.
Dihet qëllimi që ka pasur Serbia. Dihet që ai grup terrorist është financuar nga Serbia, është trajnuar atje në bazat e tyre të trajnimit. Prandaj edhe kemi kërkuar një hetim ndërkombëtar për këto baza të trajnimit dhe ne mirëpresim ngritjen.
Serbian Prime Minister Aleksandar Vučić is expected to address claims that his government engineered the violence on Friday.
All appears idyllic here in Malmö, but under the surface there's a less romantic truth. Police officer Glenn Sjögren works in Rosengård, a troubled suburb in Sweden's third biggest city, Malmö.
They are renting, actually, killers from Sweden to do the killings in Denmark. And it's always young kids. It's cheaper. And if they get caught, they don't get that long sentence.
Malmö in Sweden and Copenhagen in Denmark have been hit hard over the last months with gang violence. Several people have been killed, and there's been even arson attacks and bomb attacks. Karolina Skull is the regional director in Malmö for youth work.
The grooming on social media is a relatively big factor for why kids are coming into these environments.
The cross-border crime between Denmark and Sweden has now resulted in police from Denmark working in Sweden and vice versa.
We have to work very close to each other to shorten the ways of communication.
This new approach where police operate on the other side of the border is not normal, but it's clearly needed. Because it is only 10 kilometers across the Øresund Bridge to the Danish capital of Copenhagen. And several attacks over the summer have been committed by Swedish gangs, or at least by young people who were hired by these Swedish gangs to do so. Carsten Norton, Denmark's most famous crime documentary writer, has covered the gang wars.
Den temmelig alvorligt. Altså, vi har jo inden for de seneste 4 måneder har der jo efter politiets vurdering været i hvert fald 25 attentatforsøg på dansk jord.
And Norton is not optimistic about the future of the gang violence in Denmark and Sweden.
Tidligere der har vi jo talt meget om, at der kunne være en risiko for, at den svenske tilstand den kom til Danmark. Nu er det sådan set allerede sket.
Και με τη συνολική πάντως δημογραφική κατάρρευση να καθίσταται κυριολεκτικά ένα υπαρξιακό στοίχημα για το μέλλον μας.
I'm on the Greek island of Chios, where empty villages like this one serve as a reminder of a new kind of threat facing the country as a whole. After years of economic hardship, many young Greeks have decided to either move abroad or delay starting a family. With its population expected to plummet in the coming decades, the nation is now grappling with a severe demographic crisis. Find out more in a new episode of Witness.
Υπάρχει μία συνεχόμενη μείωση του πληθυσμού, ειδικά στις νέες ηλικίες, διότι η κρίση έκανε τον κόσμο να ξαναφεύγει προς τις ευρωπαϊκές χώρες και προς την Αμερική.
For a very large period of time, even though I had my degree, I was unemployed. I couldn't find a job. How can you buy a house and how can you raise a family? You can't.